Hey, what's up, guys? So the other day, somebody hit our car while trying to park next to us. Now, fortunately, though, it was a pretty small impact, and so it didn't cause a lot of damage to our vehicle. It was enough, though, to scrape up our fender. And in that car, I was running a 2-channel Viofo A329 recording front and rear, and the motion detection on the rear cam is what saved us. It did a great job of recording the truck as it was approaching us. I got the license plate and all the info and everything, which I've blurred out for their privacy. And of course, I can see the actual moment of impact when they were trying to back up next to us and wound up inadvertently hitting our car. The front cam was also helpful too because I could see the people as they were getting out of the car and walking away and not actually leaving us a note to tell us that they had hit our car. Now that said, I really found myself missing the side camera coverage to see the impact as they hit our car, and then also to see if whether or not when they got out of the car, did they look at our car and did they notice the fact that they'd hit us or not? And so after this, I've understandably been much more interested of adding some additional coverage here in these vehicles. Now, I've done a whole video in the past going over a variety of different 360-degree style dash cams. For example, in my other car, for years now, I've been running 4 different cameras pointing in different directions, including 2 side cameras, which would have been perfect in this situation, though the weakness is the fact that it requires not only a bunch of different cameras, but also the fact that because I've installed them back on the rear windows, they don't do a good job of recording up at the front of the car in case of something like a police encounter. Now, as far as a couple workarounds for this, I recently did a video on the 70mm 4K Omni, which has a rotating 4K camera that can actually point in different directions, including off to the side. The downside with this, though, is that the motion tracking may not always record where you need, especially off to the sides of the vehicle. And so for that reason, I've been leaning towards options that have dedicated cameras that always record in different directions. For example, there's the Vantrue E360, which has a pair of fisheye cameras pointing front and rear to give you a full 360-degree view around the front of your vehicle. And this would help to always give me coverage of the front and sides, while the optional rear cam would help record back behind me. Now, the downside with this setup, though, is the fact that it's using just 2K image sensors, and they're installed behind these really wide fisheye lenses. And so for that reason, because they're optimized at having this really wide field of view, they're not going to do a good job of recording details up ahead, such as license plates. Now, there are some other dash cams that have some dedicated cameras pointing in different directions, but a lot of these use lower resolution sensors, and so again, they're going to be lacking on the detail capture side. You've got dash cams like the Viofo A329 Pro, which I guess is almost there. It offers a traditional wide-angle 4K camera up ahead and an interior 1080p cam, which does a good job of recording the passengers inside the car, but it's not super great at recording off to the sides of the car. Depending on the size of your vehicle and where you mount the interior dash cam, you may get a little bit more or a little bit less coverage off to the sides. And so this now brings me to the Viofo A329S, which also offers a wide-angle 4K camera up front for all of the detail capture, but now it also adds a fisheye lens on the interior that can record not only inside the car, but off to the sides as well. Additionally, they've also bumped the resolution of this interior cam from 1080p up to 2K, which does help to offset some of the compromises that you'll see when you have such a wide fisheye lens. Additionally, this lens has 2 different configurations. You can either run it as a traditional fisheye lens to give you the widest possible configuration with the most coverage, or you can set it to the ultra-wide mode to give you a more traditional looking image. And I think this is a pretty nice balance of giving you both interior recording and being able to capture off to the sides. Additionally, this interior cam has a new HDR feature that was not available previously on the A229 Pro. And this HDR feature is going to be particularly helpful when you're recording in the daytime because inside the car is usually going to be darker and outside the car will be much brighter. If you have HDR turned off, the dashcam will prioritize recording inside the car, but outside the car, things will often be overexposed and blown out, even in this cloudy testing that I did here. In brighter, sunnier weather, this difference will be even more extreme. Then when it comes to nighttime recording, I'm also preferring what I'm seeing out of this A329S fisheye camera as well. If we take a look at the footage here from the A229 Pro, the 4 infrared LEDs act as kind of like a spotlight to record inside the car, and they seem to do a better job of recording up at the front of the car than they do back behind. If we then compare it to the A329S, not only do we get a wider field of view here with the ultra-wide fisheye lens, but it also seems to be better balanced at recording both the front and the rear of the vehicle as well. And then if you want the full fisheye view, you can also enable that capability here too. Now, when it comes to the HDR capability, I find that the results here are actually the opposite of what I see in the daytime. For example, when I've got HDR turned on, which is what I prefer in the daytime, it works fine here at night. However, if you turn HDR off at night, I find it actually gives you a brighter exposure and does a better job of seeing what's going on here at night. And so given the choice, I think the optimal experience would be having HDR on in the daytime and off at night, which is actually exactly the opposite of what we normally do with the exterior cameras. Now, the Dashcam does have an auto HDR feature that allows you to turn HDR on and off depending on time of day, but it's a universal setting that it's going to apply to all the different cameras if you choose to have each one use the auto HDR feature. And so for that reason, I think the best compromise here is to use auto HDR for the front camera, for example, but to always leave HDR on the interior camera. And I say this because HDR is very helpful in the daytime to record both inside the car and out. But at night, even though, yes, there is going to be a bit of a compromise with HDR turned on, it's not that big of a deal, and it's not as big of a difference as what I see with the HDR on and off in the daytime. Now, this A329S, it is a newly released dash cam, and I have been encountering some bugs here with this initial version of the firmware, particularly with the interior cam not always working properly. For example, that infrared LED that helps to record inside the car at night doesn't always turn on when you expect it to. And this issue seems to happen whenever the dash cam fully turns off, and then the next time you maybe get back in the car and turn on the car, the infrared LED will not turn back on even if you have it fully enabled in the settings. Now, if you notice it, you can always go into the settings and tell it to turn on the LEDs that are already turned on. However, assuming the LEDs are turned on, it will work properly if you, say, turn off your car and go into parking mode, and the dash cam stays powered the whole time, even if it's not using the interior camera and the IR LEDs while you're parked. Next time you turn the car back on and it switches back to driving recording mode, in that situation, yes, the IR LEDs will turn back on and they'll work properly. So this looks to be like a bug here just with this first release of the firmware that I'm sure Viofo will address in a future update. And so while this interior cam is not perfect, I'm definitely liking it so far as a nice improvement over the previous A229 Pro's interior cam. And if you'd like to order one of these dash cams as well, you can order the A329S 3-channel online to get the front, rear, and interior fisheye cabin camera. Additionally, down in the description below, I'll also link to all of the other variants of these different dash cams here too. And if you'd like to learn more about the A329S or some of the other variants like the A329T, down in the description, I'm also linking to all the other videos that I'm working on this series as well, as I'm testing and learning about this dash cam and making videos along the way. And if you're enjoying these videos and you'd like to be notified as future videos go live, well, make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell as well so that you can keep up to date as new testing videos go live. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you're all doing great, and I'll see you in the next one.